Hey guys, tonight we're stepping back into the Middle Ages to explore the wild world of medieval matchmaking. Picture this: you're a young maiden in a bustling medieval town. The cobblestone streets hum with the clatter of hooves and the shouts of merchants haggling over sacks of grain. You've just turned 16, and your parents are already plotting to find you a husband. But here's the twist, love. That's a luxury few can afford. In this world, marriage is a transaction, and you're the bargaining chip. Forget swiping right or flirty glances across a crowded room. Your future spouse might be chosen before you've even met them. Talk about a blind date with stakes higher than a castle tower. So before you settle in, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop a comment with your location and what time it is where you are. It's always fun to see how far and wide our little community stretches. Now dim, the lights maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake to the crowing of roosters and the rhythmic clang of the blacksmith's hammer echoing through the misty morning air. It's another day in your small village, and as you trudge to the well with a wooden bucket, the cold water splashing against your hands, you catch the sidelong glances of neighbors. You're of marriageable age now, and the village buzzes with it. The air is thick with the scent of wood smoke and damp earth mingling with the faint sweetness of bread baking in a nearby oven. Your parents have been whispering about suitors' names you've heard in passing faces you might not even recognize. In this era, marriage isn't about stolen kisses or secret love letters. It's about survival alliances and securing a foothold in a harsh, unpredictable world. If you're born to nobility or a wealthy merchant family, your fate is a carefully calculated move on a grand chessboard. Your parents might broker a deal with a lord from a neighboring fiefdom, trading your hand for a few acres of fertile land or a promise of military support. Imagine the scene: your father, clad in a fur-lined cloak, sits across from a grizzled noble, their voices low over mugs of frothy ale. They haggle over dowries, perhaps a chest of silver coins or a prized hunting horse, while you're upstairs brushing your hair, unaware of the life being stitched together for you. You might not meet your betrothed until the priest calls your name at the altar, their face a stranger beneath a ceremonial hood. It's a roll of the dice, and you're the wager. But if you're a peasant, the game shifts slightly. You've got a bit more room to breathe, though the stakes are still tethered to practicality. You might eye the baker's son, his hands dusted with flour, or the shepherd girl who tends her flock with a steady hand. Economic ties matterkin. They plow a field, mend a fence, or bring a dowry of a single cow to the marriage. Love might flicker in stolen moments, like a shared laugh at the harvest festival, but it's rarely the spark that lights the fire. Instead, you look for someone who can shoulder the burden of a hard life. Picture a young blacksmith's apprentice, his tunic streaked with soot, crafting a sturdy hoe to impress your father. Or maybe you shine at the village fair, hoping to catch the eye of a farmer's daughter as you wrestle a pig into submission. Historically, marriage ages varied across medieval Europe. Women typically wed around 20 men, closer to 25, though noble girls could be bound as young as 12 to seal a deal. Peasants often waited longer, needing time to scrape together enough to start a household. And in some regions, things got downright theatrical. Marriage markets sprang up, where parents paraded their eligible children like livestock at a fair. You'd stand there, cheeks flushed, as strangers sized up your strength, or your family's reputation, bartering your future over a handshake. In bigger towns, professional matchmakers might step in a medieval Tinder with no swipes, but plenty of haggling. These go-betweens knew every bachelor and maiden worth knowing, arranging clandestine meetings in market squares or quiet churchyards. They'd whisper your virtues to a suitor's family, your skill with a needle, your father's modest plot of land, pocketing a slice of the dowry for their trouble. It's a gritty, grounded system, far from the candlelit dinners of modern romance. The village pulses around you as you navigate this turning point. Children dart past shrieking with laughter, their bare feet kicking up dust. Women gossip, by the well their voices a soft murmur beneath the creak of the bucket pulley. Somewhere, a lute strums a jaunty tune, blending with the bleating of goats. The world feels alive, raw, and you're at its heart, teetering on the edge of a life-altering choice, or a choice made for you. Scholars still tussle over one question: did love sneak into the equation more for the lower classes? Some argue peasants had the freedom to court, to let affection grow amid the hayfields and hearthfires. Others insist economics ruled even there, with parents nudging their children toward the most sensible match. The truth likely dances somewhere in between, a messy tangle of heart and hard reality. But landing a match is just the opening chapter. Once someone's caught your hand or been thrust into it, there's the matter of sealing the deal. Betrothals loom on the horizon, a web of promises and rituals that could bind you tighter than iron chains. In the next section, we'll plunge into that world where breaking a vow might cost you more than a broken heart. It could mean disgrace, debt, or even a duel. Curious, stick around, because the stakes are about to climb higher than a cathedral spire. So you've found someone, or more likely, your parents have found someone for you. Maybe it was a chance meeting at the market, or maybe it was a deal struck over a mug of ale at the last harvest festival. Either way, you're here now, and it's time to seal the deal with a betrothal. Don't get too starry-eyed about it, though. In medieval times, this isn't just a sweet promise whispered under the moonlight. It's a contract legally binding, socially enforced, and packed with stakes higher than a knight's ransom. Let's step into your shoes, feel the weight of it all, and see what this moment really means. Picture this. You're in your family's home, a sturdy little place with a thatched roof and walls of wattle and daub. The fire is going popping and hissing as it warms the room, and the air carries the cozy scent of burning wood mixed with the faint earthiness of the straw-strewn floor. You're sitting there, maybe on a rickety wooden stool, while your parents face off with the parents of your intended. Their voices are hushed, but intense, haggling over the dowry like merchants at a fair. You hear words like 2 cows, a plot of land, and half a year's wool. It's not exactly romantic, is it? You might feel a bit like a prize pig being traded, but that's the medieval way. Marriage is a family affair, and love, well, that's a bonus if it happens to show up. The betrothal itself is the main event, often outshining the wedding that'll come later. It's not just a casual will you moment. It's a ceremony with all the trappings of a big deal. Imagine you're standing in the village square, the cobblestones cold under your feet, or maybe in the dim light of a stone church, the air heavy with incense and anticipation. Your intended is beside you, looking just as nervous, their breath visible in the chilly air. The priester, maybe the village elder, if you're keeping it simple, stands before you droning on in a voice that's equal parts solemn and bored. Around you, family, friends, and nosy neighbors press in their murmurs, a low hum, their eyes boring into you. You can hear the rustle of woolen cloaks, the creak of boots, and the occasional sniffle from someone fighting off a cold. You exchange vows, and they're not the flowery kind you might dream up. These are serious, weighty words promises that lock you in tighter than a chastity belt. Your hands might shake as you say them, your voice catching, as you realize there's no easy way out. Break this betrothal, and you're not just breaking hearts, you're breaking the bank. You could owe the other family a fat fine, face a lawsuit in the local court, or worse, get branded as untrustworthy. In a tight-knit community, where everyone knows your business, that's a social death sentence. So you swallow hard and commit, feeling the invisible chains of duty settle around you. But it's not all grim. Once the vows are done, the mood shifts. The crowd cheers a ragged burst of noise that echoes off the buildings. Your families clasp hands, maybe even hug, and you and your intended manage a small, awkward smile. Gifts get passed around. Perhaps a ring, simple, an iron or silver if you're lucky, or a carved wooden token. Here's a fun fact to lighten things up. In some places, they'd slip that ring onto the fourth finger of your left hand, believing a vein that ran straight to your heart. Sound familiar? Yep, medieval folks were the OGs of the engagement ring vibe. Then comes the feast, and oh, it's a sight. Tables are dragged into the open, piled high with food slabs of roasted mutton, crusty loaves of bread, steaming bowls of pottage thick with barley and turnips. Ale flows like a river, and wine if your family's got the coin. Musicians, maybe a fiddler and a drummer, kick up a tune, and soon everyone's dancing their boots, stomping the ground in a rhythm that shakes off the day's tension. You join in the taste of honeyed mead on your tongue, the warmth of the fire, and the crowd sinking into your bones. For a moment, you forget the pressure and just enjoy it. Now let's get to the nitty-gritty, the money. Betrothal isn't just about vows, it's about economics. The bride's family usually brings a dowry, cash, land animals, whatever they can, muster to sweeten the deal and set you up as a couple. But it's a negotiation, and it can get ugly. Picture your father red-faced arguing that 3 sheep are worth more than a scrawny cow, while the other side insists on a bigger haul. If the dowry's too small, the whole thing could collapse, leaving you betrothed to nobody and your family out of pocket. In some places, the groom's family might cough up a bride price instead, paying for the privilege of taking you off your parents' hands. Either way, it's a high-stakes game, and you're the prize or the bargaining chip, depending on how you look at it. Historically, betrothal was the real deal, sometimes more binding than the wedding itself. Once you were betrothed, you were as good as married in the eyes of the law and the church. That's why breaking it was such a scandal. Scholars still argue over what it all meant. Was it a holy vow sanctified by God and the priest's blessing, or just a fancy contract between families, with the church tagging along for the ride? Maybe it's both faith and finance tangled up like a pair of lovers in a hayloft. What's your take? As the feast winds down, you sneak off with your intended. You wander to the edge of the village, where the noise fades and the night wraps around you like a cloak. The sky's a scatter of stars, sharp and bright, and the air's crisp, tinged with the scent of damp earth and pine. You sit on a low wall or lean against a tree talking quietly. Maybe you share a laugh about your uncle's terrible dancing, or maybe you confess how scared you are of what's ahead. It's a stolen moment, rare and fragile, and you feel something shift, maybe not love, yet but a thread of connection tying you together. Don't get too mushy, though. This is still a practical deal. Your families have sunk time and treasure into this, expecting a return kid's stability, a stronger clan. Here's a little jest to keep it real. Betrothals were like medieval prenups, but with better food and no lawyers to ruin the fun. The fire's embers glow faintly as the last guests stagger off, and you're left with a swirl of feelings thrill for the future jitters about what's next and a bone-deep tiredness from it all. But there's no breather, yet you've got a wedding to plan. And trust me, medieval weddings aren't just a party. They're a gauntlet of customs omens and community meddling. From picking a lucky day to dodging bad spirits, it's a wild ride. Curious hang on, because Section 3's about to take you there. So you're engaged, betrothed, to be exact, and now it's time to plan the wedding. You might think this is where the fun begins. But in medieval times, planning a wedding isn't about Pinterest boards or hiring a coordinator. It's a community effort steeped in tradition, superstition, and a whole lot of elbow grease. You're not just throwing a party, you're orchestrating a ritual that's part social contract, part religious ceremony, and part village-wide spectacle. Let's dive into the gritty details of what it takes to pull off a medieval wedding, from picking the perfect and lucky date to wrangling your entire village into helping out. Imagine this. You're standing in your family's modest home, the smell of wood smoke clinging to the air, mingling with the faint scent of herbs drying from the rafters. Your mother's bustling around her hands, dusted with flour from the morning's bread making, while your father's out back, haggling with a neighbor over the price of a pig for the feast. You're trying to keep track of a million details, but there's no wedding planner to call, no checklist app on your phone. Instead, you've got a village full of people, some helpful, some nosy, all with opinions, and a head full of superstitions to navigate. First things first, picking the date. You can't just choose a Saturday in June and call it a day. In medieval times, the calendar is a minefield of good and bad omens. You've got to consult the church. Of course, weddings are typically held on Sundays after Mass, but some days are off limits, like during Lent or Advent when the church frowns on festivities. Then, there are the old pagan beliefs lingering in the background, whispering that certain days are luckier than others. You might hear your grandmother muttering about avoiding Wednesdays, or your aunt insisting that a full moon brings fertility. It's a delicate dance balancing faith folklore and the availability of the local priest. Once the date set, it's time to rally the troopsika, your entire village. Weddings aren't private affairs. They're community events, and everyone's expected to chip in. Picture your neighbors rolling up their sleeves, ready to help with everything from brewing ale to sewing your dress. The women gather in a circle, their needles flashing as they stitch together your wedding gown, gossiping about who's courting whom and whether the miller's son is really as charming as he seems. Meanwhile, the men are out in the field slaughtering livestock for the feast or hauling barrels of wine from the nearest town. It's a communal effort, and you're at the center of it all, feeling both grateful and overwhelmed. But let's talk about the dress. You're not waltzing into a bridal boutique to try on gowns. You're making do with what you have or what your family can afford. If you're lucky, you might get a new dress, dyed in bright colors like red or blue to symbolize joy and fidelity. More likely, you're wearing your best Sunday outfit, maybe spruced up with a few embroidered details or a borrowed veil. And here's a quirky tidbit. In some regions, brides wore green, believing it warded off evil spirits and brought good luck. Imagine you're standing there, draped in emerald fabric, hoping the color keeps the fairies at bay. It's a far cry from today's white wedding dresses, which didn't become popular until centuries later. Now, about the venue. Most weddings take place at the church dooryard, not inside, but right there on the steps, where the whole village can witness the vows. The church is the heart of medieval life, and marriage is as much a public declaration as a private commitment. You can almost feel the rough stone beneath your feet, the chill of the morning air nipping at your skin as you stand before the priest, your breath visible in the crisp air. The crowd presses in their faces a mix of joy and curiosity, and you can hear the murmur of prayers and the occasional cough echoing off the church walls. But before you get to the big day, there's the matter of invitations. No fancy cards or Facebook events. Here you spread the word by mouth, maybe, with a little help from the town crier if you're feeling formal. You might even host a bidding where a designated bidder goes door to door, inviting guests and collecting contributions for the feast. It's like a medieval Kickstarter, with neighbors pitching in food, drink, or labor to make the wedding happen. You're grateful for the help, but it also means everyone feels entitled to an opinion on how things should go. Good luck keeping your cool when your third cousin insists on bringing his pet goat to the ceremony. Let's not forget the food. The wedding feast is the highlight of the day, and it's a massive undertaking. You're not ordering catering. You're coordinating a village-wide potluck on steroids. The menu depends on your social status and the season, but expect hearty fare, roasted meats like boar or venison pies, stuffed with pigeon or rabbit, and plenty of bread to sop up the juices. If you're near the coast, maybe some fish or oysters make an appearance. And for dessert, think fruit tarts, honey cakes, and spiced wine to wash it all down. The air is thick with the smell of roasting meat and baking bread, and your stomach rumbles in anticipation. But here's a fun fact. Medieval wedding cakes weren't the towering confections we know today. Instead, guests might bring small cakes or buns, which were piled high on a table. The bride and groom would try to kiss over the stack without knocking it over, a test of their future happiness. Imagine you and your intended leaning in for that kiss, the crowd holding its breath, hoping the cakes don't topple. It's a moment of lighthearted fun in an otherwise serious day. Planning a medieval wedding is a logistical nightmare, but it's also a labor of love, emphasis on the labor. You're juggling 100 details, from securing enough ale to making sure the priest doesn't double book you with a funeral. And through it all, you're hyper-aware of the eyes on you, the expectations, the weight of tradition pressing down like a heavy cloak. Scholars still debate one key question: how much say did the couple really have in all this? Some argue that especially among the nobility weddings were political chess moves, with little room for personal preference. Others point to records of peasant weddings, where couples might have had more freedom to choose their partners and plan their celebrations. The truth probably lies somewhere in between, a messy mix of duty and desire, much like the weddings themselves. As the big day approaches, you're a bundle of nerves and excitement. You lie awake at night, listening to the creak of the wooden beams above you, imagining the ceremony, the feast, the life that awaits. Will it all go smoothly? Will the weather hold? Will your intended look at you with something like affection or just duty? Only time will tell. But before you can say "I do," there's one more hurdle: the wedding attire. What will you wear to make your grand entrance? Will it be a borrowed gown or something new? And what about the superstitions tied to every stitch and color? Stick around, because in Section 4, we'll dive into the world of medieval wedding fashion, where every choice carries a meaning and the wrong accessory could spell disaster. The day begins with a gentle nudge from the dawn light slipping through the narrow window of your chamber. You stir the straw mattress, rustling beneath you, and a cool breeze carries the faint scent of lavender from the rushes scattered across the floor. Your heart skips a beat. Today is your wedding day. You rise the rough wool of your night shift, brushing against your skin, and step toward the wooden chest where your wedding attire waits neatly folded and ready. The house hums with early morning sounds, the clink of pots in the kitchen, the soft chatter of your family waking to the occasion. This isn't just another day in your medieval village, it's a milestone, a moment that binds families and shifts the course of your life. You pause, taking it in a flutter of excitement, tinged with nerves dancing in your chest. Before the vows and the feast, though, there's the task of dressing, and in this era, that's an event all its own. The bride's attire. You lift the lid of the chest, and your wedding gown greets you. If you hail from a noble family, it's a sight to behold. Silk or velvet, dyed a rich crimson or deep blue colors that whisper of love and loyalty. The fabric glimmers faintly in the dim light, embroidered with golden thread that twists into delicate patterns. You trace your fingers over it, feeling its weight, knowing it's more than a garment. It's a banner of your family's pride and the union to come. If you're a peasant, your gown is humbler, but no less cherished. It's your best woolen dress, carefully patched and brightened with a ribbon your mother tucked away years ago. Perhaps it's a cheerful green, a hue said to fend off ill spirits and invite good fortune. You might not have silks or jewels, but you've borrowed a neighbor's veil or woven daisies into your hair, determined to shine on this day. Next comes the veil, a tradition no bride skips. Your mother steps forward, her hand steady as she drapes it over your head. It's linen or silk if you're lucky, flowing down your back like a soft stream. She secures it with a circlet of wild flowers, murmuring a blessing for joy and children to come. The words hang in the air, wrapping you in the warmth of custom and care. The groom's preparations. Meanwhile, across the village, your betrothed readies himself. Picture him standing before a small, polished bronze mirror, tugging at the collar of his tunic. His hands shake just a touch as he fastens his belt, the day's importance settling over him. If he's noble, his tunic is fine wool or linen, dyed a bold shade and paired with snug hose. A cloak embroidered with his family's mark hangs from his shoulders, and maybe a hat with a feather crowns his head, a nod to his rank. For a peasant groom, it's simpler, a clean linen tunic, woolen hose, and perhaps a borrowed cloak for a bit of flair. He's scrubbed himself clean this morning, a rare treat, in a wooden tub with water warmed over the fire. The faint scent of herbs clings to him as he dresses, a small luxury for this big day. The ritual of dressing. Back in your chamber. Dressing becomes a quiet ceremony. Your mother laces up your gown, her fingers quick and sure. As the fabric tightens around you, your mind drifts. What will he be, like this husband-to-be? Will kindness grow between you, or will duty define your days? You shake off the questions, anchoring yourself in the moment, the gentle pull of the laces, the brush of your mother's, hands the rustle of the veil. Your groom, too, feels the weight of the day. As he adjusts his cloak, his father claps him on the shoulder. Voice gruff, but warm. "You'll do us proud, lad." The words steady him, and he takes a deep breath, smoothing his tunic one last time. Adornments and meaning. Now, the finishing touches. For you, a noble bride, that might mean a necklace of pearls or a silver brooch glinting at your chest. If you're a peasant, it's a ribbon at your waist, or a sprig of rosemary for luck. You catch your reflection in a small handheld mirror. Its bronze surface blurs the edges, but you see the change. You look taller, more certain, as if the day is already molding you. Your groom adds his own marks of pride, a belt with a carved buckle or a cloak handed down from his grandfather drapes over him. As he pins it in place, he feels their eyes on him, those ancestors guiding him into this new chapter. Color matters here too, not the white of later centuries, but hues rich with meaning. Your red gown might signal passion, your blue fidelity. Green wards off mischief, yellow sings of joy. He might wear deep tones if he's wealthy, or earthy shades if he's not, perhaps with a bright sash to mark the day. The final moments. You slip on your shoes, soft leather, if you're noble sturdy boots, if you're not, and hear the village stirring outside. Laughter and footsteps echo as folk head toward the church. Your stomach flips a mix of thrill and jitters. You step into the main room, and your family turns to you. Your father's eyes glisten as he takes your hand. "You're a beauty, my girl," he says, voice thick. "May this day bring you all the happiness you deserve." You smile, love swelling in your chest, and then the church bells toll their deep notes rolling through the air. It's time. A hint of what's to come. But wait, before you leave, consider this. Every stitch and shade you wear carries a whisper of superstition. A wrong color, a missing charm, and you might tempt fate or the fairies. What happens if the old ways aren't honored? Hold that thought, because in Section 5, we'll step into the ceremony itself, where every vow, glance, and gust of wind could foretell your future. You stand before the church, its weathered stone walls rising like a silent guardian over the village. The heavy wooden door looms open, framed by carvings of saints and angels. But today, the ceremony unfolds here at the threshold, a sacred space where heaven brushes against the earth. The sun shines brightly overhead, casting a golden glow across the scene, as if nature itself blesses your union. A gentle breeze stirs the air, carrying the earthy scent of damp soil and the faint tang of wood smoke from nearby hearths. A crowd surrounds you, their presence a living tapestry of the community. Villagers of all ages press close, children weave between legs, giggling as they strain for a better view, while elders lean on gnarled staffs, their lined faces softened by memory. The blacksmith stands with arms crossed, a rare grin breaking his stern demeanor, and the baker's wife wipes flour-dusted hands on her apron, whispering to her neighbor about your dress. Their clothes are a patchwork of homespun wool and linen dyed in muted hues of brown, green, and blue, the finest they own worn for this moment. Your father walks beside you, his hand a steady weight on your arm, guiding you through the throng. His grip is firm but gentle, a silent promise of support as you approach the church door. Ahead, your betrothed waits, flanked by his family. He's clad in a deep green tunic that catches the light, its hem embroidered with simple thread, a sign of care, if not wealth. In his pocket, he carries a silver coin stamped with the image of Saint Christopher, patron of travelers, a charm to safeguard the journey you're about to begin together. His eyes meet yours, a flicker of anticipation, mingling with solemnity. You, too, are adorned with purpose. Your dress, whether a simple shift or a finer gown, feels both comforting and constricting, its fabric whispering against your skin with every step. Pinned to your chest is a small bouquet of herbs, thyme for courage, mint for virtue, and a single rose for love. The scents rise, faintly grounding you as the crowd parts to let you through. The priest steps forward, his robes of white and gold rustling softly. He raises his calloused hands, and silence falls like a curtain over the murmurs and rustling leaves. "Dearly beloved," he intones his voice, deep and resonant, carrying over the gathered throng. We are gathered here in the sight of God and this company to join this man and this woman in holy matrimony. He speaks with measured gravity, his words painting marriage as a sacred bond, a union ordained by divine will. He emphasizes duty fidelity to one another, the raising of children, the strength found in partnership. The Latin phrases he weaves in quod Deus, conjunxit, homo non separat mingle with the chirping of birds, and the distant lowing of cattle, grounding the sermon in the rhythm of village life. You listen, half hearing your mind a whirl of nerves and wonder. The weight of his message settles over you like a mantle heavy with expectation. Then he turns to you, his gaze piercing yet kind. Do you your name freely and willingly take this man, his name, to be your lawful husband? Your throat tightens the question hanging in the air. You swallow hard and manage, I do, your voice steady despite the flutter in your chest. As the words leave your lips, a thought flickers show free is this choice. Truly, the Church demands consent, a cornerstone of its doctrine. Yet in a world where families broker alliances and futures are shaped by necessity, how much is your yes your own? Historians still debate this poring over faded parchments to weigh duty against desire in medieval unions like yours. But today, you anchor yourself in the moment, letting the question fade. The priest shifts his attention to your betrothed. And do you, his name, freely and willingly take this woman, your name, to be your lawful wife? His response comes firm and clear, I do. You steal a glance at him, noting the slight tremor in his hands, the way his hair catches the sunlight. Is he as nervous as you are beneath that steady voice? Now the ring. The priest blesses it, a simple band of silver or gold depending on your means, and hands it to your betrothed. He takes at his fingers, brushing yours, as he slips it onto your fourth finger. With this ring I thee wed, he says, his voice softening as he meets your eyes. The metal is cool against your skin, a tangible symbol of eternity, echoing the old belief that a vein from this finger runs straight to your heart. You glance down at it, marveling at how something so small can carry such meaning. Next, he reaches into his tunic and pulls out a small purse, its leather worn but sturdy. With this, I pledge to provide for you and our home, he declares, placing it in your hands. The coins clink softly within their weight, a reminder of the practical promises woven into this day. You nod, accepting it, feeling the balance of sentiment and survival in your grasp. The priest smiles faintly, then takes a stolia strip of embroidered cloth from his vestments. He wraps it around your joined hands, binding you together in a gesture as old as the church itself. What God has joined, let no man put asunder. He intones the fabric tightening like a vow made manifest. A shiver runs down your spine, a mix of awe and responsibility rippling through you. The crowd holds its breath, their collective gaze a thread connecting you to generations past who stood here before. The church door is adorned with garlands, rosemary for remembrance, lavender for devotion, wheat stalks for fertility, each sprig a silent prayer for your future. The scents mingle with the crisp air, and you feel tethered to this moment, this place, this man. The priest's voice softens his hands, gesturing toward you both. Now it is time to speak your vows. Repeat after me. Your heart leaps, pounding against your ribs. These words, soon to spill from your lips, will seal your fate, weaving your life irrevocably with his. You take a deep breath, the world narrowing to the space between you, the priest, and the promises to come. But pause here, just for a moment. The vows you're about to speak are more than ritual. They're a bridge between this ceremony and the life ahead, a declaration that will echo through your days. What will they demand of you? How will they shape the bond you're forging? Hold that curiosity close, because in Section 6, you'll step fully into those words, promises of love, honor, and obedience, and unravel the weight they carry in a world where duty often reigns over romance. The priest's voice dwindles to a soft murmur, barely audible over the rustling of the crowd. You stand rooted to the spot, your hands still entwined with your betrothed's, the coarse stole chafing faintly against your skin. The air hums with anticipation, rich with the earthy aroma of scattered herbs, rosemary, thyme, and a hint of lavender blending with the smoky curl of incense wafting from the church doors. This is it, the moment you've been hurtling toward. All day the exchange of vows that will forge your life anew. The priest straightens his weathered face solemn as he fixes his gaze on you. Repeat after me. He intones his voice cutting through the stillness like a blade through cloth. I, your name, take thee, his name, to be my wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love, cherish, and to obey, till death us do part, according to God's holy ordinance, and thereto I give thee my troth. Your throat tightens the words, looming large and unyielding. They're not mere sounds, they're a covenant, a chain of promises that will tether you to this man, this stranger who is about to become your world. You draw a shaky breath, the cool air steadying your nerves, and begin. I, your name, take thee, his name. Your voice trembles at first, a fragile thread in the tapestry of the moment, but you press forward. To be my wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward. The crowd leans in their silence, a weight pressing against your shoulders. When you reach to obey, your tongue falters for a heartbeat. It's a word steeped in meaning, not just a vow, but a surrender, a nod to the medieval order where a wife's place is firmly beneath her husband's. You steal a glance at your betrothed. His jaw is set, his eyes locked on yours, a mix of determination and something softer, perhaps uncertainty. Does he feel the burden of this word too? The mantle it drapes over him. You swallow the thought and finish strong. Till death us do part, according to God's holy ordinance, and thereto I give thee my troth. The final phrase lands like a stone, dropped into a still pond rippling outward. The priest turns to your betrothed, his expression expectant. Now, you one, he says a quiet command. Your betrothed shifts his fingers, tightening around yours as he squares his shoulders. I, his name, take thee, your name, to be my wedded wife. He begins his voice, low but clear, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish till death us do part, according to God's holy ordinance. And thereto I give thee my troth. You note the absence of obey in his pledge, a deliberate omission rooted in tradition. His role is to protect and cherish. Yours includes submission. It's a quiet asymmetry that underscores the life you're stepping into, a reminder of the balance or imbalance that will define your days. Yet as he speaks, his eyes hold yours with a steadiness that feels like a vow of its own, unspoken but palpable. The priest steps back, his hands rising in a gesture of finality. By the power vested in me by the Holy Church, I now pronounce you man and wife. The words unleash a torrent of sound cheers, erupt a raucous wave that crashes over you. The crowd surges faces, beaming voices overlapping in a chorus of congratulations and ribald humor. But first the kiss. Your betrothed, now your husband, turns to you, a hesitant smile breaking through his nerves. He leans in, and you rise to meet him, your lips touching in a fleeting chaste kiss. It's a seal, a public mark of the union just forged, and the crowd roars its approval, the church bells clanging in joyous counterpoint. You draw apart, heat flooding your face as the stole is unwound, freeing your hands. Your husband takes one of them in his touch, warm and solid, and together you face the throng as a united front. The priest's voice cuts through again. Let us proceed inside for the nuptial mass. He gestures toward the church, and the crowd begins to stream in their excitement, buzzing like bees in a hive. You pause, lingering on the threshold. The church interior looms cool and shadowy, the air heavy with wax and stone. You walk the aisle at your husband's side, the congregation's gazes trailing you like a tide. The Mass unfolds in a haze of Latin and ritual chants roll through the space, the priest's voice reverberating your knees, pressing into the cold floor as you kneel. Your mind spins, still tethered to the vows you've spoken. At last, the priest offers a final blessing, his hand sketching the cross above you. Go forth in peace and love, he says, and you rise legs, trembling faintly. The crowd's applause escorts you back into the daylight, where a hail of grain greets you, symbols of abundance, raining down, sticking to your hair and dress. You laugh, brushing them away, and your husband mirrors you, his grin wide and unguarded. The village square is alive with preparations. Tables groan under the weight of food, roasted boar, crusty bread, frothing aliwal flowers, and herbs carpet the ground, their scent rising in the warm air. The feast is imminent, but your husband draws you aside into a quiet nook beyond the clamor. We did it, he says, his voice tinged with awe. We're married. Yes, you reply, a smile blooming. We are. He kisses you again, this time with a depth that feels private, a shared secret amid the day's chaos. It's a taste of what's to come, a life stitched together by the words you've just sworn. But as the glow of the moment settles, a question nudges at you. How will these grand promises hold up against the grit of daily life? In a world of plow and prayer, where love must wrestle with duty, what shape will, for richer, for poorer, take? Hold that curiosity. Close section 7 will sweep you into the revelry that follows a whirl of music, dance, and village mirth that crowns your wedding day. The great hall pulses with the hum of celebration, a tapestry of sound and color unfurling before you. The wedding feast has reached its peak, the long tables strewn with the remnants of hearty dishes, and the air heavy with the scent of ale and wood smoke. You sit beside your new spouse, the high table, a throne of honor amid the revelry, your hands brushing as you share a smile. Around you, the guests, villagers, kin, and wandering souls fill the space with their chatter and laughter. But now, as the plates are cleared and the candles burn low, a hush of expectation settles over the room. The entertainment is about to begin, transforming this night into a memory etched in song and spectacle. At the far end of the hall, the musicians assemble, their silhouettes flickering against the stone walls. A minstrel strums a lute, its warm, resonant notes threading through the din like a golden thread. Beside him, a harpist plucks her strings, each chime a drop of liquid silver, while a fiddler draws his bow with a flourish, teasing out a lively reel. A drummer taps his tabor, the rhythm steady as a heartbeat, grounding the melody in the earth of this moment. The tune they strike up is a familiar one, a dance song of love and valor, its lyrics carried on the voices of the players. You feel the music tug at you, a call to join the joy unfolding before your eyes. The floor clears, and a group of dancers sweeps in their steps, light and sure. Clad in vibrant tunics and gowns, they form a ringa carol, the medieval circle dance that binds the community in motion. Their hands link their feet, trace patterns in time with the fiddle's jaunty wail, and their laughter rises like sparks from the fire. It's a sight both rustic and regal, a dance that speaks of harvests and hearth of unions blessed by the turning of the seasons. You watch entranced as they sway and spin the hall alive with the pulse of their steps. But the dancers are only the beginning. A juggler strides into the circle, his hands juggling a cascade of painted wooden balls, 3, then 4, then 5, each toss a defiance of gravity. The crowd murmurs in awe, then erupts in cheers as he trades the balls for knives, their steel edges flashing in the torchlight. He grins a rogue and motley, and you hold your breath, marveling at his daring. It's a performance that straddles the line between danger and delight, a testament to the skill that thrives even in these simple surrounds. An acrobat follows tumbling across the floor with the agility of a cat. He leaps into a handstand, balances on one palm, then flips upright to a chorus of gasps and applause. Behind him, a fire eater emerges, his face shadowed and stern. He lifts a blazing torch to his mouth, and with a breath sends a tongue of flame roaring into the air. The heat brushes your cheeks, the sight both thrilling and unearthly, a whisper of the wild amidst the domesticity of the feast. Then comes the storyteller, a figure bent with age, but brimming with vigor. His voice rolls over the hall deep and resonant as he weaves a tale of chivalry and peril. He speaks of a knight errant, a lady fair, and a dragon whose scales shimmer like emeralds. The words paint the air, and you lean closer, drawn into the drama of betrayal and redemption. When the knight slays the beast and claims his love, the hall sighs as one caught in the spell of the story. It's a reminder that in this age, tales are as vital as bread feeding the spirit, as the feast feeds the body. The musicians shift to a slower tune, and a lone singer steps forward. Her voice is a thread of light, weaving a ballad of eternal devotion. The harp accompanies her, its notes soft and mournful, and the hall falls still, wrapped in the intimacy of her song. You glance at your spouse, feeling the weight of the day in the quiet beauty of this moment. The lyrics linger, a promise set to music binding you closer as the firelight dances in your eyes. Yet the night is far from over. The guests, emboldened by drink and mirth, take up the mantle of merriment. A cluster of men launches into a singing match, their voices rough but hearty as they belt out bawdy tunes. One, with a wink in your direction, dedicates a verse to the bride, its cheeky rhyme drawing a blush and a laugh. The hall roars with approval, the line between performer and audience blurring in the shared glee. The dancing resumes, no longer confined to the troupe. Couples rise, linking arms and spinning in a whirlwind of stepsa, galliard, a saltarello, whatever the music demands. Your spouse pulls you to your feet, and you stumble into the fray, giggling as you learn the rhythm. The hall becomes a blur of motion, a living tableau of celebration where every twirl is a thread in the fabric of the night. Later, a game erupts, blind man's, buff with a guest blindfolded and groping through the crowd. Shouts and squeals fill the air as he lurches toward his prey, the children dodging with impish glee. It's a burst of chaos, a playful interlude that strips away the formality of the day. Even the elders join in, their voices raised in mock indignation or encouragement, the hall a crucible of communal joy. In a quieter corner, an old woman sits unnoticed by most. Her spindle whirs, turning wool into thread, her fingers nimble despite her years. She hums a tune, ancient and lilting, a counterpoint to the revelry. Her presence is a subtle performance, a nod to the continuity of life beyond the spectacle, a reminder that even in celebration, the work of the world goes on. Historians ponder the purpose of such entertainment. Was it mere festivity, a burst of light in the medieval gloom? Or did it carry deeper meaning, protection against misfortune, a blessing for the newlyweds? Perhaps it was both a dual gift of joy and ritual, its echoes resonating through the ages. As the hour grows late, the music softens, the dancers tire, and the guests begin to slip away their farewells, a murmur against the night. You stand with your spouse, the hall now, a husk of its earlier vigor, the fire reduced to glowing coals. The entertainment has woven its magic, leaving behind a glow of memory and connection. But as the last strains of the lute fade, your senses sharpen to the remnants of the feast. The tables once laden with bounty now hold only scraps, yet the memory of the meal lingers, the rich flavors, the shared plates, the sustenance that fueled this night. What wonders filled those trenchers? What tastes defined your wedding day? Step into Section 8, where we'll uncover the culinary heart of the medieval wedding feast, a banquet as vibrant and storied as the entertainment itself. The great hall thrums with life, a symphony of clattering dishes, laughter, and the low murmur of conversation. You sit at the high table, your new spouse at your side, the weight of the day settling into a warm glow of contentment. The feast stretches out before you, like a tapestry of abundance tables, groaning under the weight of roasted meats, golden-crusted pies, and wheels of cheese so large they could feed a village for a week. The air is thick with the scent of spiced cinnamon cloves and pepper, mingling with the rich savory aroma of boar and venison sizzling over open flames. Candlelight flickers across the hall, casting a golden sheen on the faces of your guests, their cheeks flushed with ale and joy. You glance around, taking it all in. The hall is a riot of color and sound. Banners emblazoned with your family's crest hang from the rafters, swaying gently in the draft. Garlands of ivy and wildflowers drape the walls, their fresh green scent cutting through the richness of the food. At the lower tables, villagers and kin dig into their trenchers, thick slabs of bread serving as plates with gusto, their hands tearing into hunks of meat and sopping up gravy with relish. Children dart between the benches, giggling as they snatch bits of pastry or a stray apple from the tables, their laughter a bright counterpoint to the deeper rumble of adult voices. At your table, the fare is even more lavish. A whole roasted swan, its feathers painstakingly reattached, sits as the centerpiece, a symbol of grace and fidelity. You marvel at the craftsmanship. Each feather gleams in the firelight as if the bird might take flight at any moment. Beside it, a boar's head stares out with glassy eyes, its tusks gleaming a testament to the hunt and the bounty it provides. You've heard tales of such displays, but seeing them up close is something else entirely. The boar's mouth is stuffed with an apple, a nod to the harvest and the hope for a fruitful union. Your plate is piled high with delicacies, slices of venison glazed with honey, and herbs pigeon pie, with a crust so flaky It crumbles at the touch, and a stew of rabbit simmered in wine and spices. You take a bite of the pie, the flavors bursting on your tongue-rich savory, with a hint of sweetness from the dried fruits mixed in. It's a taste of luxury, a reminder of the wealth and status this marriage brings. Yet for all its grandeur, there's a homely comfort to the food, a sense of tradition passed down through generations. Bread is everywhere. Loaves of dark rye, white wheaten rolls, and flatbreads studded with seeds. You tear into a roll, its crust crackling, the inside soft and warm. It's the staff of life, and today it feels like a blessing. You dip it into a bowl of pottage, thick stew of barley onions and turnips savoring the simple, hearty flavors. Even in this feast of plenty, the basics hold their own, grounding the meal in the rhythms of the land. For dessert, the tables are laden with tarts and custards, their surfaces dusted with sugar and spice. You spy a platter of marchpane paste shaped into delicate flowers and animals, a treat usually reserved for the highest tables. You reach for a piece, the sweetness melting on your tongue, a rare indulgence in a world where sugar is worth its weight in gold. There are fruit tarts, too, filled with apples, pears, and berries, their juices bubbling through golden crusts. And of course, the wedding cake, a towering creation of spiced honey and nuts its top, adorned with a miniature bride and groom carved from marzipan. You smile at the sight, a whimsical touch in a day steeped in solemnity. But it's not just the food that makes the feast, it's the drink. Ale flows freely, its malty tang a perfect match for the rich dishes. For the high table, there's wine, deep red, and spiced with cinnamon and cloves, its warmth spreading through your chest with each sip. You and your spouse share a loving cup, a silver goblet passed between you as a symbol of your union. As you drink, your eyes meet over the rim, and for a moment the hall fades, leaving just the two of you bound by this simple act. The crowd cheers their voices, a roar of approval, and you laugh the sound bright and unguarded. Entertainment weaves through the meal like a golden thread. Minstrels stroll between the tables, their lutes and harps filling the air with melody. One singer, a young man with a voice like honey, dedicates a ballad to you and your spouse, his lyrics spinning a tale of love and adventure. You listen half enchanted as he sings of a knight and his lady, their devotion as steadfast as the stars. It's a story as old as time, yet in this moment it feels like yours alone. Between courses, a troupe of jugglers takes the floor, their hands a blur as they toss knives and flaming torches. You hold your breath, marveling at their skill, the danger adding a thrill to the evening. An acrobat cartwheels across the hall, her body twisting in impossible shapes, drawing gasps and applause. Even the dogs, usually content to snooze by the fire, perk up their tails, thumping in rhythm with the music. As the night wears on, the dancing begins. The musicians strike up a lively tune, and the floor fills with couples, their steps a whirl of color and motion. You and your spouse lead the first dance, a stately pavane that gives way to faster, more joyous reels. You spin and twirl your skirts, flaring your laughter, mingling with the music. For a moment, the weight of the day lifts, and you're just two people caught in the joy of the dance. Historians still argue whether the abundance of meat at wedding feasts was a display of wealth or a necessity to feed the guests. In truth, it was likely both a chance to flaunt prosperity while ensuring no one left hungry. But in this hall, on this night, it feels like more than that. It feels like a promise, a vow, that come what may, you and your spouse will face the future together, sustained by the love and support of your community. As the feast winds down, the tables are cleared, and the guests begin to drift away, their bellies full and their hearts light. You linger, savoring the last sips of wine, the final crumbs of cake. The hall grows quiet, the fire burning low, casting long shadows across the floor. You turn to your spouse, a smile playing on your lips. "What a night," you murmur, and they nod their hand, finding yours. But before the night ends, there's one more tradition to observe: the presentation of wedding gifts. As the last of the guests depart, you and your spouse are ushered to a quiet corner, where a table awaits piled high with tokens of goodwill. What treasures lie there? What symbols of hope and prosperity will you carry into your new life? Step into Section 9, where we'll uncover the meaning behind these gifts and the bonds they forge. The feast has left the hall in a contented hush, the air thick with the lingering scents of roasted meats and spiced wine. You sit beside your new spouse, your hands resting lightly on the table, fingers brushing, as you exchange a quiet smile. The fire crackles in the hearth, casting a warm, flickering glow across the room, and the last of the guests linger in small clusters, their laughter muted now like the fading notes of a lute. But the night isn't over yet. There's one final tradition to unfold before the day slips into the quiet of your new life together: the presentation of wedding gifts. You glance toward the far end of the hall, where a sturdy oak table groans under the weight of offerings from family, friends, and neighbors. The gifts are a patchwork of the community's goodwill, some wrapped in coarse linen, others tied with rough twine, or adorned with sprigs of rosemary and thyme. It's a humble yet heartfelt display, each item a token of support for the life you're about to build. Your heart swells with gratitude and a flicker of excitement as you rise from your seat, your spouse's hand slipping into yours as you weave through the crowd toward the table. The guests part to let you pass, their eyes gleaming with anticipation. This moment is more than a formality. It's a bridge between the vows you've spoken and the future you'll share, a tangible blessing from the village. You reach the table, and the first gift catches your eye: a woven basket brimming with loaves of bread, their crusts golden and crisp, still warm from the oven. The baker's wife steps forward, her hands dusted with flour, and offers a shy smile. "For your hearth," she says, her voice soft but steady. "May your home always be filled with plenty." You nod, the weight of her words sinking in. In a world where winter can claw at the granaries, bread is more than food. It's a promise of survival, a cornerstone of your new household. Next, a blacksmith lumbers forward, his broad frame casting a shadow over the table. He places a set of iron tools in your hands, a hammer, tongs, and a small anvil, their surfaces worn smooth from use. For your work, he grunts, his voice rough as the forge he tends. May your hands be strong and your labor fruitful. You heft the tools, feeling their solid weight, and picture them in your new home, shaping wood and metal for the life you'll craft together. It's a practical gift, but it carries a deeper meaning. Marriage is a partnership, a shared burden of toil as much as tenderness. Your gaze drifts to a small wooden box, its lid etched with swirling vines and delicate flowers. You lift it carefully, and inside, nestled on a bed of dried lavender, lies a silver brooch. A single pearl gleams at its center, catching the firelight. Your mother steps forward, her eyes misty with memory. "This was mine," she whispers, "and my mother's before me. Now it's yours." You trace the brooch with your fingertips, feeling the cool metal and the weight of generations. It's a symbol of lineage, a quiet thread tying you to the women who've stood where you stand now and you pin it to your gown, the pearl glowing like a tiny beacon. Not every gift is so solemn. A gaggle of children, their faces sticky with honey cake crumbs, tumble forward, thrusting a garland of wildflowers into your hands, daisies, buttercups, and a few wilting roses. For luck, they chorus their voices bright and breathless. You laugh, draping the garland over your arm, and thank them with a wink. It's a fleeting, fragile offering, but its innocence carries the hope of new beginnings, a splash of color against the day's weightier moments. Then there's the ale barrels of it rolled in by the village brewer, with a grin as wide as his girth. For the nights when the fire burns low, he says, tapping a barrel with a knowing look, and for the mornings after. The crowd chuckles, and you feel a blush warm your cheeks. It's a gift of merriment, a nod to the joys and trials of married life, and you can already hear the laughter that will echo through your home, fueled by the brewer's frothy bounty. Among the practical offerings are bolts of cloth wool, for warmth linen, for lightness presented by the weaver's family. For your bed and your table, the weaver's wife says her hands rough from years at the loom. You run your fingers over the fabric, its texture sturdy yet soft, and imagine the linens you'll sew, the blankets that will shield you from winter's bite. It's a gift of comfort, a quiet luxury in a world of hard edges. But not all gifts are objects you can hold. An old woman, her back curved like a willow branch, shuffles forward, her eyes sharp despite her age. She takes your hand in hers, her skin dry as parchment, and murmurs a blessing in a tongue you barely grasp, perhaps an old dialect or a whisper of pagan rites. May the spirits of the land watch over you, she says, her voice a rasp. May your fields be fertile and your hearth never cold. You nod, uncertain but grateful, feeling the weight of her words like a shield. It's a gift of protection, a charm against the shadows that flicker at the edges of medieval life. As you move along the table, you spot a small leather-bound book, its pages yellowed and edges worn. A scholar from the nearby town presents it with a slight bow. A collection of poems, he says, to inspire your hearts and minds. You open it carefully, the ink faded but legible, and catch lines about love loss and the turning seasons. It's a rare treasure in a world where books are scarce, and you feel a thrill at the thought of reading it with your spouse, your voices weaving together in the stillness of your new home. The gifts keep coming. A set of clay pots from the potter, a carved wooden spoon from the carpenter, a bundle of herbs for healing and cooking from the wise woman. Each one is a piece of the village, a fragment of the life you're stepping into. You feel their expectations pressing against you, but also their support, a web of hands ready to lift you up. Historians still puzzle over some of these traditions. Was the bread a symbol of fertility or just a practical staple? Did the silver brooch ward off evil spirits? Or was it simply a mark of status? Likely, it's both practicality wrapped in superstition, a mirror of a time when the mundane and the mystical danced together. The final gift is a small carved box, presented by your spouse's kin. Inside, on a cushion of wool, lies a lock of your spouse's. Hire a token of fidelity, a quiet vow. You close the box and turn to them, your heart full, seeing the same emotion in their eyes. These gifts are more than things. They're a pledge, a chorus of voices saying, "You're not alone in this journey." But the hall grows quiet now, the fire sinking into embers, and the guests slip away into the night, their laughter fading like a distant echo. Soon you and your spouse will retreat to your chamber for the bedding ceremony, a ritual as old as the stones beneath your feet, steeped in custom and expectation. What awaits you there? What final acts will seal this day? Step into Section 10, where the intimate, often public close of your medieval wedding night unfolds. The great hall has fallen into a contented hush, the last echoes of laughter and song fading like the dying embers in the hearth. You sit beside your new spouse, your hands entwined the warmth of their touch, a quiet anchor in the stillness. The air is heavy with the lingering sense of roasted meats and spiced wine, but now, as the candles burn low, a cool draft slips through the hall carrying the faint scent of night-blooming flowers and damp earth. The guests have begun to depart their footsteps, muffled by the rushes strewn across the floor, leaving behind a trail of well wishes and knowing smiles. You glance at your spouse, catching a flicker of nervousness in their eyes that mirrors your own. The day has been a whirlwind of vows, feasting, and celebration. But now, as the night deepens, you both know what comes next, the bedding ceremony. Your heart skips a beat as the realization settles in. This isn't just a private moment between you and your spouse, it's a ritual, a public affirmation of your union, steeped in tradition and expectation. The bedding ceremony is a cornerstone of medieval weddings, a custom as old as the hills where the community escorts the newlyweds to their chamber to witness the consummation of the marriage. It's a strange thought, isn't it? In a world where privacy is a luxury few can afford, even this most intimate act is shared with the village. You swallow hard, trying to steady your nerves. It's not that you're afraid. Well, maybe a little, but the weight of so many eyes, so many hopes presses down on you like a heavy cloak. A murmur ripples through the remaining guests, and you look up to see your parents and your spouse's kin gathering near the door, their faces lit by the soft glow of candles and torches. They're ready to lead the procession to the bedchamber, and you feel a flutter of anticipation mixed with a touch of dread. Your spouse squeezes your hand, offering a small, reassuring smile, and you rise together, your legs a bit unsteady, from the wine and the day's excitement. As you step forward, the crowd parts, forming a path lined with flickering light and whispered blessings. The procession begins a slow, solemn march through the hall and up the winding stone stairs to the bedchamber. The guests carry candles, their flames dancing in the draught, casting long shadows that twist and sway like spirits on the walls. Someone strikes up a tuna-body song about love and lust, the kind that makes your cheeks burn, even as you stifle a laugh. The lyrics are cheeky, the melody jaunty, and soon the whole group is singing, their voices bouncing off the stone walls in a riot of sound. It's a strange mix of reverence and revelry, a reminder that marriage is both sacred and earthy, a union of souls and bodies. You reach the bedchamber, its heavy oak door creaking open to reveal a room bathed in the golden glow of rushlights and a crackling fire. The bed looms large, its posts draped with garlands of ivy and rosemary, symbols of fidelity and remembrance. The linens are crisp and white, strewn with petals of rose and lavender, their sweet scent mingling with the smoky warmth of the hearth. It's a beautiful sight, but your stomach churns with nerves. This is where it all becomes real, where the promises you made at the altar take on flesh and blood. The guests crowd into the room, their presence filling the space with a hum of energy. Your mother steps forward, her hands gentle, as she helps you out of your gown, her fingers deftly untying the laces. Across the room, your spouse's father does the same, his voice low and teasing as he jests about the night ahead. It's all part of the ritual, this public undressing away, to ensure that the marriage is properly consummated and that there are no tricks or deceptions. You try to laugh along, but your throat is dry, your heart pounding like a drum. Once you're both in your nightclothes, simple shifts of linen that feel impossibly thin under the gaze of so many, you're led to the bed. The priest, who has followed the procession, raises his hands and intones a blessing, his voice deep and resonant. May this union be fruitful, he says, and may the Lord bless this bed and all who lie in it. The guests echo his words, their voices a chorus of affirmation, and you feel a shiver run down your spine. It's a prayer for fertility, for children to carry on the family name. But it's also a reminder of the duty that lies ahead. With the blessing complete, the guests begin to file out their laughter, and jests trailing behind them like a fading echo. But not all of them leave. Tradition dictates that a few witnesses remain, usually family members or close friends, to ensure that the marriage is consummated. They settle into the shadows, their presence a quiet hum in the background, and you feel a flush of heat creep up your neck. It's awkward, to say the least, but you remind yourself that this is how it's always been done. In a world where alliances are forged in the bedroom, as much as on the battlefield, the community has a vested interest in the success of your union. Finally, the door closes, and you're alone with your spouse, the room suddenly vast and intimate. The fire crackles softly, casting a warm golden light across the bed, and you turn to face each other, your breaths mingling in the stillness. Your spouse reaches out their hand, trembling slightly, as it brushes your cheek, and you lean into the touch, your eyes meeting in a moment of shared vulnerability. "Are you ready?" They whisper, their voice barely audible over the pounding of your heart. You nod your throat, too tight for words, and together you slip beneath the covers, the linens cool against your skin. The bed is soft, the mattress stuffed with feathers and wool, a luxury in a world of hard floors and straw pallets. You lie side by side, your bodies close, but not yet touching, the weight of expectation hanging heavy in the air. It's a strange thing, this first night, equal parts thrill and terror, a dance of discovery in the dark. As you lie there, your mind drifts to the stories you've heard, the whispered tales of wedding nights gone awry or blessed with passion. There's a quirky tradition you recall. In some villages, the couple is given a poseta, warm spiced drink made with milk ale and herbs to encourage fertility and ease the nerves. You wonder if there's one waiting for you on the bedside table. But in the dim light, you see only a jug of water and 2 cups. Maybe it's for the best your head is already spinning enough without the added haze of alcohol. Your spouse shifts beside you, their hand finding yours under the covers, and you squeeze it gently, a silent promise of support. "I'm glad it's you." They murmur, their voice soft and sincere, and you feel a warmth bloom in your chest. It's not a declaration of love, perhaps that'll come later, but it's a start, a seed of affection planted in the fertile soil of your new life together. You turn toward them, your bodies drawing closer, and in the quiet of the room, you begin to explore the landscape of each other's skin. Your touch is tentative at first, then growing bolder. The world outside fades, the witnesses forgotten, and for a moment it's just the two of you, cocooned in the warmth of the bed, your breaths mingling, your hearts beating in time. But as the night deepens and the fire burns low, a thought niggles at the back of your mind. This act, this consummation, is more than just a private moment. It's a legal seal, a binding contract that cements your marriage in the eyes of the church and the law. What happens if it doesn't go as planned? What if the witnesses don't hear the right sounds? Or if the sheets don't bear the expected signs come morning? The stakes are high and the pressure is immense. Hold that thought, because in Section 11, we'll delve into the tangled web of marriage laws where love and duty collide with the cold hand of regulation, and where a single night can make or break a union. The first light of dawn creeps through the narrow window of your bedchamber, painting the room in soft grays and golds. You stir beneath the heavy woolen blankets, the faint scent of lavender and wood smoke clinging to the air. Your new spouse sleeps beside you, their breath a steady rhythm in the quiet, their warmth a comfort against the morning chill. The bedding ceremony is behind you, its awkward intimacy fading into memory. But as you lie there, a new weight settles in your chest. Last night was more than a private milestone. It was a legal act, a seal on a contract that binds you not just to your spouse, but to the church, the community, and a web of laws that govern every step of your married life. Welcome to the medieval legal system, where love takes a back seat to rules, and the fine print could trip you up faster than a muddy village lane. You slip out of bed, careful not to wake your spouse, and pad across the cold stone floor to the window. Outside, the village is stirring. Roosters' crow carts rumble, and the distant clang of a blacksmith's hammer echoes through the mist. You lean against the sill, your night shift brushing your skin, and let your mind wander to the invisible chains of law that now encircle you. Marriage in this era isn't just a union of hearts. It's a tightly regulated institution, with the church and local lords holding the reins. Every vow, every act, every expectation you've navigated so far has been shaped by rules older than the hills, and breaking them could cost you more than a broken heart. Let's start with the big one, the church's grip on marriage. By the Middle Ages, the Catholic Church has declared itself the ultimate authority on who can marry, when and how. You and your spouse didn't just exchange vows for love or family honor. You did it under God's watchful eye with the priest as his stand-in. The Church insists on consent, a mainstream fact that sounds progressive until you realize it's less about romance and more about ensuring no one's coerced into a union that might later be contested. Picture yourself back at the church door, saying, "I do," while the priest scrutinized your face for any hint of reluctance. That moment wasn't just for show. It was a legal checkpoint proof that your marriage is valid in the eyes of canon law. But consent is a slippery thing. Sure, you said yes, but how much choice did you really have? If you're a noble, your parents likely brokered the match to secure land or alliances, and saying no could have meant disgrace or disinheritance. If you're a peasant, economic pressures, needing a partner to share the plow, or a dowry to bolster the farm might be, nudged you toward the altar. Historians still argue whether true consent was possible in a world where family and survival called the shots. Some say the church's rules gave couples a sliver of agency. Others call it a formality, a box to check before the real business of property and power took over. You ponder this, gazing out at the village, wondering where your own yes fits in that debate. Now, let's talk about what makes a marriage stick. Because it's not just the vows or the bedding. The church has a laundry list of requirements, and missing one could unravel everything. For starters, you had to be free to marry. No prior betrothals, no secret spouses tucked away in another village. You chuckle at the thought, imagine forgetting a fiancé like you'd misplace a sock. But it happened, and the church courts were kept busy sorting out those messes. You also had to be unrelated, at least beyond the fourth degree of kinship, a rule meant to prevent inbreeding, but also to keep family alliances from getting too tangled. The priest probably grilled your families on this before the ceremony, tracing lineages like a medieval genealogist. Then there's the consummation, the act you navigated last night, under the watchful eyes of witnesses. It's not just a private milestone, it's a legal necessity, the final stamp on your marriage's validity. Without it, your union could be annulled, leaving you both in limbo, legally single but socially tainted. You blush, remembering the awkward presence of those witnesses, but you're grateful they were there to confirm the deed. In some quirky cases, though, couples dodged this step. Nobles sometimes delayed consummation for years, especially if the bride was young and still claimed a valid marriage. It's a loophole that makes you raise an eyebrow, wondering how they pulled that off without raising suspicions. Breaking these laws comes with steep penalties. If you or your spouse were found to have a prior betrothal, the marriage could be voided and you'd both face fines or public penance. Think standing in the churchyard in a white sheet confessing your sins to a gawking crowd. Adultery, that's a sin that could land you in ecclesiastical court, with punishments ranging from flogging to excommunication. And if you dared to marry outside the church's rules say, in a clandestine ceremony, under the moonlight, you'd be branded a sinner, your union invalid, your children illegitimate. It's a harsh system, and you feel a chill at the thought of slipping up. But it's not just the church you answer to. Secular laws enforced by local lords or town councils add another layer of complexity. Your marriage might involve property transfers, land, livestock, or a chest of coins that require legal oversight. If you're a peasant, you might owe your lord a merchant a fee for his permission to marry, a reminder that even your love life is subject to his whim. You grimace, imagining handing over a hard-earned sheep just to say I do. For nobles, the stakes are higher. Marriage contracts are like treaties with clauses about inheritance and dowries that could spark feuds if mismanaged. The law also dictates your roles as husband and wife. Your vows included to obey a word that carries legal weight. As a wife, you're under your husband's authority, your property and earnings now his to manage. He's expected to protect and provide, but the law gives him broad power, even to discipline you, though thankfully the church frowns on excessive cruelty. If you're the husband, you feel the pressure to failure to provide could see you shamed or sued. It's a delicate balance, and you wonder how you'll navigate it in the years ahead. Despite the rules, there's room for human messiness. Couples sometimes defied the church, marrying in secret or ignoring kinship rules, only to face the consequences later. In one odd tale, a couple claimed their marriage was invalid because they'd been bewitched into it, a creative excuse that rarely worked, but kept the courts buzzing. You smirk, picturing yourself trying to convince a stern bishop that a love potion made you say I do. As you dress, pulling on a simple tunic and lacing your shoes, you feel the weight of these laws like a shadow at your back. They're a framework, yes, but also a cage shaping every choice you make from this day forward. You step outside the morning air, crisp against your skin, and see your spouse emerging from the house, their hair tousled from sleep. You share a quiet smile, a moment of connection amid the legal labyrinth you've entered. But laws are only part of the equation. Beneath the surface of vows and contracts lies the economic engine of your marriage, the dowry, the bride price, the wealth that binds your families. How did you and your spouse navigate that financial maze? What did it cost to secure this union? Step into Section 12, where we'll unravel the dollars and cents, or rather the shillings and sheep of medieval marriage, and discover the true price of saying I do. The morning sun climbs higher, bathing your village in a soft golden light that glints off the dew-soaked cobblestones. You stand outside your new home, a modest timber-framed cottage if you're a peasant, or perhaps a grander manor if you're of higher rank, your breath visible in the crisp air. The faint clatter of pots and the bleating of goats drift from nearby, grounding you in the rhythm of daily life. Your spouse is inside tending the fire or unpacking the gifts from last night's feast, and you pause to savor the quiet. But beneath the glow of your newlywed status, a more practical reality hums the financial machinery that made this marriage possible. Those vows you spoke at the church door, they were sealed not just with love or duty, but with cold hard assets, dowries, bride prices, and enough haggling to make a merchant blush. Let's dive into the medieval money game where your union was as much a ledger entry as a leap of faith. You wander back inside, the scent of wood smoke and fresh baked bread greeting you as you cross the threshold. Your spouse looks up, offering a tired but warm smile, and you settle at a rough-hewn table, its surface scarred from years of use. On it lies a small leather pouch, one of the wedding gifts, its contents a handful of silver pennies, and a single gold coin, a modest fortune by village standards. It's a reminder of the economic stakes that underpinned your wedding, the deals struck long before you said "I do." In this era, marriage isn't just about joining two hearts. It's about merging resources, securing futures, and sometimes keeping the wolf from the door. If you're a bride, the dowry was your family's ticket into this union. Picture your parents, weeks or months ago, sitting across from your betrothed's kin in a tense negotiation. Your father, his brow furrowed, might have offered a chest of linens, a milk cow, or a plot of arable land, whatever they could spare, without tipping into ruin. Your mother, ever practical, might have thrown in a set of iron pots or a bolt of woolen cloth, her voice sharp as she argued their worth. The dowry wasn't just a gift. It was your contribution to the marriage, a stake in the household you're now building. For nobles, dowries could be staggering, castles, villages, or coffers of gold, while for peasants like you, it might be a few animals or a share of the harvest. Either way, it's a lifeline meant to ease you and your spouse into a stable start. But dowries weren't a one-way street. In some regions, the groom's family paid a bride price, a sum to compensate your kin for losing your labor. Imagine your betrothed's father, red-faced and stubborn, arguing that 2 sheep and a barrel of ale were plenty for a girl who's only good at spinning. You smirk at the memory, good thing you're handy with a needle and a plow, or that deal might have fallen apart. This payment, often in coin or goods, was less about your worth and more about balancing the scales, ensuring both families walked away with something to show for the match. The haggling could get downright theatrical. Families bartered like market traders, each side inflating their offer's value while downplaying the others. A cow wasn't just a cowette, was the finest milker in the county, a sack of grain enough to feed a household through winter. You can almost hear your uncle boasting about the prime pig he threw into the deal, conveniently forgetting its limp. These negotiations weren't just about money. They were about pride, leverage, and sometimes settling old scores. In one quirky case, a family offered a flock of geese that turned out to be half wild, scattering across the village the moment the deal was struck. You chuckle, wondering if your own dowry came with any such surprises. Once the deal was sealed, the church and local laws stepped in to make it official. The dowry was often formalized in a contract witnessed by a priest or a notary, if you were fancy enough to afford one. This wasn't just paperwork. It was a safeguard. If your marriage failed, say, through annulment, or your spouse's untimely death, the dowry might return to you or your family, a medieval prenup to protect your interests. But there was a catch. Your husband controlled the dowry during the marriage, using it to run the household or invest in land. You grit your teeth at the thought your family's hard-earned goods, now his to manage. Still a wise husband listened to his wife's counsel, knowing her stake in their shared prosperity. For nobles, the financial stakes were stratospheric. Marriages could shift entire regions with dowries, including manners mills, or even rights to a trade route. A misstep could spark feuds, or bankrupt a family, turning weddings into high-stakes chess games. Peasants like you played a simpler game, but the consequences were just as real. A too small dowry might be meant a lean first year scraping by on barley porridge while your neighbors feasted. Too generous, and your family might have gone hungry to make the match happen. You glance at the pouch on the table, grateful for its modest heft, a buffer against the uncertainties ahead. The church had its own financial angle. You might be paid a fee to the priest for the wedding, plus offerings during the nuptial mass candles coin, or a loaf of bread for the poor. If you married outside your lord's manor, there was the merchant a tax to appease his ego. It's like the Middle Ages invented red tape just to test your patience. You shake your head, imagining modern couples griping about venue deposit negotiating with a lord who thinks he owns your future. Historians still debate how much these financial arrangements shaped love itself. Did dowries and bride prices stifle affection, turning marriage into a transaction? Or did they free couples to build something real, knowing the basics were covered? Some argue the system empowered women by giving them a stake in the household. Others say it reduced them to bargaining chips. You ponder this, watching your spouse stoke the fire, their movements steady and familiar already. Maybe it's both a cage and a foundation, depending on the hands that wield it. As you sit there, the morning unfolds around you. A neighbor's rooster crows again, and the scent of baking bread grows stronger, pulling you back to the present. Your spouse joins you at the table, setting down a wooden bowl of porridge studded with dried apples. Well, make it work, they say, their voice quiet but firm, and you nod the pouch of coins, a silent partner in your resolve. The financial deals are done, the contracts sealed, but their echoes will shape your days, every harvest, every child, every winter survived together. Yet while your marriage is now a matter of village record, sealed by coins and vows, there's another world to explore, the grand spectacles of royal weddings. How did kings and queens navigate these same rituals with stakes that could topple kingdoms? Step into Section 13, where we'll trade your humble cottage for gilded halls and uncover the pageantry and politics of noble nuptials that made history. You step away from the humble warmth of your cottage, the scent of porridge and wood smoke fading as you imagine a world far removed from your village's muddy lanes. Picture yourself in a grand castle, its stone walls draped with tapestries that shimmer in the torchlight, their threads woven with tales of conquest and glory. The air is rich with the perfume of beeswax candles and the faint tang of polished armor, a stark contrast to the earthy simplicity of your own wedding. You're no longer a peasant or minor noble. Today you're a guest at a royal wedding, a spectacle where love is a footnote to power, and every gesture could shift the fate of kingdoms. Welcome to the medieval world of noble nuptials, where the stakes are higher than a cathedral spire, and the guest list reads like a map of Europe. The Great Hall is a riot of splendor, its vaulted ceiling lost in shadows, its floor a mosaic of polished stone that gleams underfoot. You stand among a throng of lords and ladies, their silks and velvets dyed in jewel tones, ruby sapphire emerald, that catch the light like stained glass. Golden chains glint at their throats, and jeweled rings flash as they gesture their voices, a low hum of intrigue and ambition. At the center of it all stands the royal couple, a prince or princess perhaps barely out of their teens, and their betrothed a foreign noble whose presence seals an alliance forged in ink and iron. Their faces are composed, but you catch a flicker of nerves in their eyes. Royalty, or not they're human, and this day binds them to a future they can't fully control. The ceremony unfolds not at a village church door, but in a cathedral, its spires piercing the sky. Its interior, a forest of marble columns and gilded altars. You follow the procession inside your footsteps, echoing on the stone floor, the air heavy with incense, and the faint sweetness of roses strewn along the aisle. The bride's gown is a masterpiece silk, embroidered with gold thread, its train trailing behind her like a river of starlight. Her veil, delicate as spider silk, is pinned with a crown of pearls and sapphires, each gem a nod to her family's wealth. The groom is no less grand, his doublet of crimson velvet slashed with cloth of gold, a sword at his hip. That's more ceremonial than practical, but screams power all the same. You can't help but smirk your own wedding attire, whether a simple wool dress or a borrowed cloak feels like a burlap sack in comparison. The archbishop presides his robes, heavy with embroidery, his voice booming as he invokes God's blessing on the union. The vows are similar to yours to have and to hold till death us do part, but they carry a different weight here. This marriage isn't just about two people. It's about merging dynasties, securing borders, or ending wars. The bride's I do might promise a fleet of ships or a truce with a rival king. The groom's pledge could bring a province into the fold. You watch as they exchange rings, not simple silver bands, but ornate works of art encrusted with gems that could buy your entire village. The crowd murmurs approval, but you sense the undercurrent of calculation. Every guest is weighing what this union means for their own fortunes. After the vows, the procession moves to the banquet hall, a space so vast it could swallow your cottage whole. Tables stretch the length of the room, laden with dishes that make your village feast look like a snack. There's peacock roasted and refeathered its tail, fanned out like a jeweled mosaic, swan stuffed with chestnuts and saffron, and a whole stag, its antlers gilded, served with a sauce of wine and spices. You gape at the excess, wondering how many fields were harvested to feed this crowd. For dessert, there's a subtlety, a sugar sculpture of a castle or a mythical beast, so delicate it seems to glow in the candlelight. You'd love to sneak a piece, but you're pretty sure touching it would land you in the dungeon. The entertainment is as extravagant as the food. A troupe of minstrels plays on lutes' viols, and shawms, their music soaring above the chatter. Jesters tumble, and just one daring to mock a dour lord who doesn't crack a smile. A poet recites an ode to the couple, his words dripping with flattery, comparing the bride to Venus and the groom to Apollo. You roll your eyes. Nobody's that perfect. But in this court, hyperbole is currency. Later, a mask unfolds with masked dancers acting out a tale of chivalry, their costumes glittering with gold thread and bells. It's a far cry from the jugglers and bawdy songs of your own wedding, and you can't decide if you're awed or overwhelmed. But beneath the pageantry lies a gritty truth. Royal weddings are political chess moves. A well-placed marriage could unite kingdoms or end decades of war, but a bad one might spark rebellion or bankruptcy. Take Eleanor of Aquitaine, whose marriage to Louis VII of France in 1137 brought vast lands, but ended in annulment only for her to marry Henry II of England and reshape European power. These unions were high-stakes gambles, and the couple often had little say. You imagine the bride, her smile fixed, knowing her dowry includes half a duchy, but wondering if she'll ever see her homeland again. It's a reminder that even in gilded halls, marriage is a transaction, love a luxury few can afford. There's a quirky twist to some noble weddings, the proxy marriage. Sometimes the bride or groom couldn't attend, so a stand-in, often a relative, took their place at the altar. Imagine saying I do to a duke's uncle, knowing the real groom is hundreds of miles away signing treaties. It's like medieval Zoom, but with more incense and fewer technical glitches. You chuckle, picturing the awkward moment when the real couple finally meets, hoping they like each other's faces as much as their titles. Historians still debate how much agency royal brides had in these arrangements. Some argue women like Eleanor wielded real power, using their marriages to shape politics. Others say they were pawns moved across the board by kings and fathers. The truth likely lies in the messy middle noble women navigated a tightrope of duty and influenced their choices, constrained but never entirely absent. You glance at your spouse now tending the fire in your cottage and feel a pang of gratitude for your simpler life, where the stakes are sheep not thrones. As the royal banquet winds down, you slip back to your own reality, the castle's grandeur fading like a dream. The village hums around you, its rhythms familiar and grounding. Your marriage, though humble, is no less binding, its financial roots no less vital. But there's another side to this story, the weddings of those even less fortunate than you, the peasants who toiled in the shadow of such splendor. How did they celebrate what joys and struggles shaped their unions? Step into section 14, where well-trade gilded halls for muddy fields, and uncover the heartfelt traditions of common folk whose weddings were small, but no less profound. You step back into the familiar embrace of your village, leaving behind the gilded pomp of royal courts. The air here is sharp, with the scent of damp earth and hay, the horizon framed by fields of barley swaying in the breeze. Your cottage sits snugly among its neighbors, its thatched roof golden in the afternoon sun, and the distant bleat of sheep mingles with the laughter of children chasing each other through the lanes. You're no longer a bystander at a noble wedding. Your home, where marriage is less about politics and more about survival community and the quiet hope of a shared life. Peasant weddings like yours lack the grandeur of castles, but they pulse with a raw, earthy joy that binds families as tightly as any royal vow. Let's walk through the fields and into the heart of these humble celebrations, where love and labor dance under the open sky. Imagine it's your wedding day again, but this time you see it through the lens of the common folk, your kin, your neighbors, the people who plow the fields and mend the fences. The village is alive with preparation, a buzz of activity that feels like a harvest festival, but softer, more intimate. You wake to the crow of a rooster, the air cool and heavy with dew, as you slip into your best tunic or gown. It's not silk or velvet, but a sturdy wool or linen perhaps, dyed a cheerful green, or red if you're lucky. Your mother has sewn a new ribbon onto it, her stitches careful and proud, and you've tucked a sprig of rosemary into your hair for luck. Your spouse-to-be is across the village scrubbing their face in a bucket of cold water, their own tunic patched, but clean a borrowed belt cinch tight to make a good impression. The ceremony takes place at the church door, just like yours, but it's a simpler affair. The priest is there, his robes a bit threadbare, his voice gruff from years of sermons. He mutters the Latin phrases, but you catch the villagers exchanging knowing glances. They're here for the promises, not the pomp. You and your betrothed stand hand in hand, the rough calluses of your fingers, brushing together a testament to lives spent sowing and reaping. The vows are the same to have and to hold for better for worse, but they feel grounded in the soil beneath your feet. You're promising to share not just a bed, but a plow, a hearth, a life of long days and short winters. The crowd is smaller than at a noble wedding, but no less lively. Your neighbors press close, their faces weathered, but warm their clothes a patchwork of homespun browns and blues. Children dart through the throng, clutching wildflowers they've gathered from the meadows, and an old woman at the back hums a tune so ancient it might predate the church itself. When you seal the vows with a kiss, the cheers are ragged but heartfelt, and someone tosses a handful of barley grains over you, a wish for fertility and a good harvest. You laugh, brushing the grains from your hair, and catch your spouse's either grin mirroring your own. After the ceremony, there's no grand cathedral mass or gilded banquet hall. Instead, the village gathers in the common field or a neighbor's barn, its rafters strung with garlands of ivy and daisies. Tables, really just planks balanced on barrels there, set up under the open sky, covered with rough cloths and laden with food the community has pooled together. There's no roasted swan or sugar sculptures here, but the spread is generous in its own way. Loaves of rye bread still warm from the oven. A stew of turnips, onions, and mutton, and a wheel of cheese so pungent it could wake a hibernating bear. You dig in, sharing a trencher with your spouse, the wooden bowl slick with gravy as you tear off hunks of bread to sop it up. The drink is ale brewed by the village's best brewer, its malty tang cutting through the richness of the food. You pass a horn cup back and forth, the act as binding as the vows you spoke. For dessert, there's a tray of baked apples, their skins wrinkled and sweet drizzled with a bit of honey if someone's been generous. It's not fancy, but it's honest, and every bite tastes like home. The entertainment is where peasant weddings shine. Forget hired minstrels or courtly mask. Sure, the music comes from the village itself. A farmer with a weathered lute strums a lively tune, while a shepherd girl plays a bone flute, her notes clear and haunting. The drummer is a boy barely old enough to shave, but he beats his tabor with such enthusiasm you can't help but tap your foot. The dancing starts almost immediately, a chaotic whirl of carols and jigs that pulls everyone in. You and your spouse lead the first round, stumbling through the steps, your laughter louder than the music. Even the elders join, their joints creaking, but their spirits high, and you spot your uncle trying to impress a widow with a particularly bold twirl good luck, with that you think smirking. There's no juggler or fire eater, but the village has its own tricks. A group of lads stages an impromptu wrestling match, their shouts and grunts drawing cheers from the crowd. A grandmother tells a story by the fire, her voice weaving a tale of star-crossed lovers that has the children wide-eyed and the adults nodding knowingly. It's a celebration rooted in the land, in the people who share it, and you feel a swell of pride to be part of it. Peasant weddings were practical affairs, a mainstream fact shaped by the need to merge households and labor. Unlike noble marriages, which chased alliances, yours was about survival 2 sets of hands to tend the fields, 2 backs to bear the load. But there was room for joy too. In some villages, couples marked their wedding with a betting race where the newlyweds were carried to their new home on a mattress hoisted by friends, a chaotic giggling procession that often ended in a heap. You imagine trying to stay dignified during that, and it's a wonder anyone made it to the doorstep. Historians still debate how much love factored into these unions. Some say peasants had more freedom to choose their partners, their matches less burdened by politics. Others argue economic pressures left little room for romance, with parents nudging their children toward the most practical match. You think of your own marriage, the mix of duty and affection that brought you here, and figure it's probably a bit of both love sprouting like wildflowers in the cracks of necessity. As the feast winds down, the sun dips low, painting the sky in hues of amber and rose. You and your spouse sit on a hay bale, sharing a final cup of ale, the village quieting around you. The day has been simple, but full a tapestry of small moments that feel as grand as any royal banquet in their own way. But as the stars begin to prick the sky, you notice the villagers whispering, their eyes darting toward you with knowing smiles. They're talking about the superstitions that linger around weddings charms to ensure luck, rituals to ward off mischief. What beliefs shaped your day? What omens might guide your future? Step into section 15, where we'll unravel the web of wedding superstitions, from lucky herbs to whispered warnings, and see how the medieval world wove magic into marriage. The sun has dipped below the horizon, leaving your village bathed in the soft twilight glow. The sky, a canvas of deepening blues and purples. You sit with your new spouse on a worn bench outside your cottage, the air cool and fragrant with the scent of blooming honeysuckle and freshly turned earth. The wedding feast is over. The last of the villagers have wandered home, their laughter fading into the night, and the world feels hushed as if holding its breath. Your hand rests in your spouse's, their fingers warm and steady, and you feel the weight of the day settling into something quieter, more intimate. But as you glance at the garland of herbs, still pinned to your tunic, rosemary, thyme, a sprig of lavender, you're reminded of the web of superstitions that wove through your wedding, invisible threads of belief meant to guard your union from mischief and misfortune. Let's unravel these medieval charms, where every step from the altar to the bedchamber was shadowed by omens and old magic. You think back to the morning when your mother tucked that rosemary into your hair, her fingers trembling slightly as she whispered, "For remembrance and to keep the fairies at bay." It wasn't just a pretty touch. Rosemary was a shield believed to ward off evil spirits who might curse your marriage with barrenness or strife. You'd smiled at her, half amused, but you didn't argue. In this world, where a bad harvest or a sudden fever could upend your life, you take every bit of luck you can get. The lavender, too, had a purpose. Its sweet scent was said to soothe the heart and ensure fidelity, a charm to keep your love true. You sniff the air, now catching a faint whiff of it, and wonder if the old tales hold any truth. The choice of your wedding day was another dance with fate. Your family pored over the calendar, avoiding Friday's bad luck. Everyone agreed, thanks to some murky blend of pagan lore and Christian caution. A waxing moon was ideal, its growing light promising fertility and prosperity, while a waning moon might doom you to a shrinking fortune. You recall your aunt's insistence on a Sunday wedding. Her voice firm, "The Lord's day brings his blessing." But you'd heard whispers of older beliefs, like planting a seed on your wedding day to ensure a bountiful first year. Nobody did that in your village, but you bet someone's grandmother swore by it, and you can't help but grin at the image of a bride sneaking a barley grain into the dirt mid-ceremony. Your gown carried its own magic. The green ribbon your mother sewed on wasn't just for looks. It was a nod to the old gods, a color said to appease the spirits of the land and bring growth to your fields and family. Red was another favorite, believed to spark passion, though some said it scared off witches. You'd avoided yellow, like the plague. Everyone knew it, invited jealousy, a surefire way to sour a marriage. Your spouse's tunic, too, was chosen with care. That blue sash they wore, it symbolized loyalty, a quiet prayer that neither of you would stray. You glance at them now, their profile soft in the starlight, and hope the sash's magic holds. Even the food at your feast was laced with meaning. The bread you shared wasn't just sustenance, it was a symbol of abundance, each loaf a wish for full granaries. The honey drizzled over your apples was no accident either. It was thought to sweeten your union, ensuring kind words and gentle nights. In some villages, couples ate a cake mixed with cumin seeds, a quirky tradition believed to guarantee a house full of children. You didn't have that at your feast, thank goodness, because cumin and cake sounds like a culinary crime. But you can imagine your cousins giggling as they chewed it, hoping for a brood of their own. The bedding ceremony, for all its awkwardness, was steeped in superstition. The rose petals scattered on your bed were more than decoration. They were a charm for love. Their soft pink, a whisper of romance amid the practicalities of consummation. The witnesses who lingered weren't just there for legal reasons. Their presence was meant to protect you from malevolent spirits who might sneak into the room at such a vulnerable moment. You blush, remembering the old woman who slipped a small pouch of salt under your pillow before leaving muttering about warding off curses. Salt of all things, but you left it there just in case. Omens were everywhere, and not all were welcome. A dropped ring during the vows could spell disaster bad enough to make the priest pause and mutter a prayer. A sudden storm on your wedding day. Some said it foretold a turbulent marriage, though others swore it meant the heavens were blessing you with strength. You're glad your day was clear, the sun bright and kind, but you recall a neighbor's tale of a crow landing near the church during her sister's wedding, its caw a warning of betrayal. You shiver, pulling your cloak tighter, and push the thought away. Historians still argue over how deeply these superstitions shaped medieval lives. Were they heartfelt beliefs guiding every choice, or just comforting rituals in a world of uncertainty? Some say they were a blend of Christian and pagan traditions, the church grudgingly allowing old customs to linger. Others argue they gave peasants a sense of control, a way to nudge fate in their favor. You figure it's a bit of both faith and fear, braided together, like the herbs in your garland. As you sit with your spouse, the village now silent, save for the chirp of crickets, you feel the day's magic settling around you. The superstitions weren't just rules. They were stories, promises whispered by those who came before hoping to light your path. You lean against your spouse, their shoulders solid and warm, and realize that charms or no charms, you're ready to face whatever comes storms, crows, or sunny days. Now, as the stars twinkle above their light, soft and eternal, let your shoulders ease your breath slow. The village sleeps its houses tucked into the folds of the earth, each one a small world of dreams and hopes. You and your spouse rise hand in hand, the night wrapping you in its gentle embrace. The rosemary in your hair, the salt under your pillow, The vows you spoke. They linger quiet guardians of the life you're building. Picture your cottage, its fire banked low, the embers glowing like tiny suns. You step inside the door, creaking shut, and the world narrows to this moment, this warmth, this shared silence. Let the day's weight slip away, like petals falling from a rose. You're safe here, held by love and tradition, by the hands that blessed your union. Close your eyes, feel the softness of the bed, the rhythm of your spouse's breath beside you. The Middle Ages fade, but their lessons remain. Love endures through every charm and challenge. Drift now into rest, into peace, into the promise of tomorrow.